What's going on, everyone? This is Talks with Kenny, and here the topic of this video will be about the separation of church and state and what most people get wrong about it. Uh, First off, to begin, separation of church and state is not explicit in the Constitution. And in 1947, this clip I'm about to show you from PragerU, shout out to PragerU, very good resources of information. This interpretation of that religion should be in the public space was started in 1947. 5-4 decision. I forgot the rule, not the ruling, but the name of the case that this decision was handing down. It offered precedence to this modern view of strict separation, where they believe religion should be like the government should be neutral in its decision making, and religion should play no part in the public square, essentially. So we're gonna watch a 1 minute clip.
For the first time in American history, the First Amendment was not only about the prohibition of establishing a national religion, it was also about not giving any encouragement to any religion. The modern strict separation view was born. And where did the 5 justices look for support for their argument? Not the Constitution, because there was nothing in the Constitution to help them, but to that one phrase Thomas Jefferson wrote back in 1802. How ironic that the author of the Declaration of Independence, which recognizes the proposition that human beings have inalienable rights from their creator and not from government, was now being used to separate religion from the public square. For Jefferson and the other founders, religion was central to the entire American project. The Declaration of Independence and the Constitution are just 2 of countless examples where the government acknowledges its debt to God.
Yeah, so I agree with this view, not just because of my political leanings, but based on the interpretation of the Constitution. The Constitution is very clear that the government shouldn't establish a religion, but I believe they replaced that place where religion would be with their ideology. So essentially, their ideology is their worldview, and they push that ideology on all of us. But when Christians want to participate in the same game, oh no, you can't do that. Separation of church and state. I just think this is just a narrative that the left likes to push to kind of categorize people, so they know, oh, I can just exclude you, or it helps them with their canned responses like, oh, you're Christian, that's why you believe in the life begins at conception because you're a Christian. No matter if you never brought up your religion at all in any of the arguments, you could keep purely to science, and they'll still want to accept it. It was just a way for them to dismiss you or exclude you. So Lauren Barber, sorry if I butchered that, who faces a primary election Tuesday, says she is tired of the U.S. separation of church and state, a long-standing concept stemming from a stinking letter penned by one of the founding fathers. So from the PragerU video, we know that this concept is essentially this is not it's a fight of how you interpret this whole church and state argument. Because from my point of view, the Supreme Court is there to read what's in the Constitution, and based on your constitutional right, whether Congress is allowed to do something that can infringe on that, right? And I forgot where it was, but I remember there was a ruling that SCOTUS recently made a decision on that allowed a coach to pray in public. Like, imagine, like, you work for a school, and because the government fund that public school, you're not allowed to express your religious values, like your religious observance. Like, imagine that. That's not separation of church and state. The government's telling you what you can or cannot do. Oh, you can't express yourself. Imagine if the government told gay people that you can't express yourself. Oh, no, you can't do that. Everyone will have a fit. But when it comes to Christians, no one cares. That's what I'm saying. I think this is all just ideologically driven. Like, they want to perceive themselves as, oh, I'm so virtuous. What she's trying to say here is that the country was founded on the Constitution and the Declarations of Independence, not on his stinking letter. So yeah, I agree with her on this. It's like bring up a fact and they'll like move the goalpost. They're like, oh no no no, but what about here? What about here? Like they'll only use things that helps their argument or push their narrative. And if it doesn't help with their narrative or help with their argument, they won't consider it legitimate. And I think this is the same thing that's going on here. So she was speaking at a religious service in Colorado, and she told worshipers that the church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not supposed to direct the church. That is how our founding fathers intended it to be. Now, my stance on the separation of church and state is that I always assumed that it was about an organization. Like the government can't tell what an organization like the Vatican or like a church group what to do because it's an institution. I thought it was just an institutional thing, but not an individual thing. And that's where I have a big issue with these people who don't like religion in the public space, because the public space is essentially where the religious individual can operate in. Right? They always claim, like some of the counter arguments I heard about when I was doing this research on the separation of church state is that the government, like they call it establishment of religion, that the government can't put any taxpayer money into anything religious. And I think there was a school choice ruling that the SCOTUS did as well that was preventing school choice voucher money going to like religious Catholic schools, private schools of that sort. And my argument to that is, well, you expect these religious people to pay taxes, but you don't want them to have any control where their tax monies go into. And that's where I have this problem with this whole like religion can't be in the public square, because essentially with this whole strict separation of church and state, religious people are not allowed to have a voice in the public discussion. I think they're trying to exclude religious people from the discussion, right? Because my view has always been that politics is a downstream of culture. And if you come from a religious culture, obviously your candidates who's going to earn your vote will be religious as well, or in some way have your agenda at heart. And that's the whole point of taxation with representation. So you expect the religious people to pay taxes. You don't want to exempt them, but you want their tax money. But then you get mad with the school choice program where they say, hey, I want my money to go to things I believe in, right? This is where I have a problem with this whole when you work for the government, your beliefs, you shouldn't legislate based on your beliefs. Well, you probably got into that position based on your beliefs. So why not act? That's you acting on you represent the will of your people. If you come from a state that's majority Christians and they say, hey, we want abortion ban on our state, who are you to say, if you're a strict separation of church and state person, the strict separation people, who are you to say that, oh, they're not allowed to do that? They're not allowed to ban abortions for a minority, right? That's what I'm saying. That you guys like to pick a narrative when it suits you, but as soon as it's not to your benefit, they'll immediately switch, right? So I'm not going to read like throughout the whole article. Just something that I found really interesting was that they had a political expert. Like I honestly, I'm starting to lose my trust in institutions now. Like I don't want to take people's word for things anymore. Now I kind of want to just do for myself. Like if something comes up, okay, this person claimed this person claimed this. Let me figure it out for myself. Let me make up my own mind about these things. And I encourage you guys to do the same thing. Like if you listen to something you disagree with and it doesn't really drive with you, find some reasons why. Like piece some type of reasoning together and push your reasoning out there, saying, hey, this is why I don't believe in this. So then when you're confronted with someone questioning you or debating you on it, you can give a solid answer, I guess. Not a solid answer, but you can give them more of your perspective. And I think that's where we're lacking in this political climate nowadays. It's all about mischaracterizing people, downplaying them, dismissing them, looking at them as illegitimate. Like, it's craziness. So she made a claim here that she said it was extremely worrying about the environment of misinformation that extremist politicians take advantage for their own gain. And I think she was talking about the interpretation of the Constitution was false. She claimed that Barber's interpretation of the Constitution was false, but it's true. Like this is what I'm saying. It's almost like a interpretation argument. Like we have the popular interpretation. Who says everyone that agrees with you in your own little side of the political aisle. So how can you come out and say, oh, it's false, misleading, and dangerous, right? When she clearly said, hey, it wasn't in the Constitution, it was in the stinking letter, right? And in the Constitution, there was another professor that used, while the phrase separation of church and state does not appear verbatim in the Constitution, neither do many accepted constitutional principles such as separation of power, judicial review, executive privileges, or the right to marry and parental rights. No doubt rights that Breitbart cherishes, wrote Green, from the author of Separating Church and State: A History. And then they also quote tweeted someone, Michael Steele, the church is supposed to direct the government, and I'm tired of all of this separation. So he's quoting her. Congress shall not make no laws respecting an establishment of religion. Amendment 1 U.S. Constitution. I can't, not today. I disagree with this guy because let's go. I'm going to the definition of establishment, because establishment, the action of establishing something or being established. It goes back to the PragerU video. They're saying, hey, the government can't establish a religion, right? And then here's synonyms: to start, initiate, institutions, formation, founding, foundation, inception. Everything's about beginning something, but not something that already exists. And remember, I forgot what president. I think it was George Washington. He said that this America was built on a religious and moral people. So that means the founders wanted religious people to be part of the public process. They want religious people in the government, Sure, like the whole point of democracy is to try to convince one another of an idea and say, hey, this is the best path forward for our country, and here's why. And I'm gonna end it off on this. One thing about conservatives is that we want an even playing field across the board. We want to take stuff out of the way. We don't want to add obstacles for other people. Well, no, we just want to, hey, you be able to do your thing, I should be able to do mine without any restrictions. That's what a conservative main guiding principles in policy making is. Like, we just want to move obstacles out the way. We want as much opportunity for everyone. We're not trying to hear rig the game against one person over the other, or trying to recorrect something. We're like, hey, look, everyone has an opportunity to work, but no one's entitled to the same outcome. That's the end of this video.